right, guys, the results are in from some of my testing, and I'm just going to go through this with you just to give you an idea. If you plan on using 1/4-inch MDF for laser projects, depending on the power output of the machine that you have, the type of machine that you have, the setup, you may want to consider either getting a thinner material or a more powerful machine. So I'm going to go through my results that I've got so far in the cut test and just kind of go from worst to best as far as the Swore, the Monport, the X-Tool D1, and the Otour, which is, by the way, piggybacked with the Comgrow 20-watt module. Okay, first of all, the 10-watt machine performed very, very poorly in attempting to cut the MDF. I ran a couple of cut tests using 4 passes and 6 passes and had no results. After that, I just kind of went to throwing stuff at it to see if I could cut through it. And I have decided that the 10-watt machine, especially this one here, is not intended to be cutting 1/4-inch MDF. That is 8 passes, guys, right there where you see it says 8. That's 8 passes. And this is what the back of the piece looks like. Okay, it's still new material. So cutting 1/4-inch MDF with this 10-watt, not going to happen. And I will say that this 10-watt actually performs as well, if not better, than my X-Tool D1 10-watt when it comes to cutting the 4.9, 4.5 material that I usually use. Reason being, you are able to set the focal point down into the material to try to get a little bit more cutting, because it does have an automatic adjusting Z-axis that enables you to set cuts to a deeper depth than you do for engraves. So that was a bust. At that point, I took it out of the race and decided to just do a little test engrave because where this 10-watt machine lacks in cutting ability, I felt like maybe it can make up for it in engraving. So I engraved one of my logos to a piece of the material. As you can see, this is a 10-watt diode, no air assist or anything. That is straight off of the machine. I haven't done anything to it other than just pick it up. Now, I did try to cut the line out. I ran it like 4 or 5 passes and nothing happened. This is one of my attempts at a cut test with it, and I just couldn't. It was not making it through it, and this is where I decided, you know what? I'm going to quit wasting material with this machine, because I had done walked it up all the way to 6 passes on a material test, and it just wasn't happening. So if you're planning on cutting 1/4-inch MDF with a 10-watt diode, I strongly suggest you get a thinner material or look at getting a bigger machine. So we'll lay that one to the side. All right, my second results, and this is probably me, guys. I make no bones about it when it comes to the Monport and the CO2 laser. Without an adjustable Z-axis or some way to adjust the focus on this thing, I have a hard time with cutting. I have dialed in the focus, and I've got like a little spacer that I put in there, and I have really good luck with acrylic and some other materials and so forth. But I am apparently terrible at trying to cut 1/4-inch MDF with the Monport. It didn't fare very well. Okay, as you can see, there's a few places that it actually came through. Okay, you can look at the back right there, and you can see a few holes. Everywhere else, it would peek through, but it never would quite get through there. And I will say, I'm 99% sure this is focus related. So before you guys beat up on me, I'm aware, okay? I've got to design me a way to adjust the focus on the Monport, because I'm terrible with it, okay? So we're gonna kind of cast that off to the side. No ill feelings toward the machine. It's going to be a focusing issue. I just didn't feel like taking the time tonight to try to make sure I have my focus correct for this thicker material. So we'll get back to that later. All right. For the 2 diode machines that I am most comfortable with, that I use the most, and that I consider myself to be well versed in their use, it was a pretty surprising effect. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have a first place and a second place. And you guys probably aren't going to believe this, because I didn't really believe it either, to the point to where when I got my results out of the machines, I actually took one of them apart, cleaned it, and ran the test again just to make sure I didn't have dirty lens or a problem going on. So I'm going to show you the results. But coming in second place at cutting MDF is going to be the X-Tool D1 20 watt. And as you can see, some of those holes, I don't know if you can see it or not, but some of those, hang on, let me get something to put behind it for you guys. I'm gonna put a piece of construction paper back there so you can see what I'm talking about. It's a little hard to see through the camera. So I'm gonna put a piece of construction paper behind the cuts. That way you can see them a little better. Okay, as you can see on some of these guys, there's still little tags hanging on. Like I just kind of pecked them with the end of my pocket knife, and most of them fell out relatively easy, but there were some little fibers that tried to hang in there and just did not want to come loose. Okay, so the cuts are really clean. It's fairly consistent. Like I said, the material, I'm sure some of the glue and stuff like that, you can see right through there. I'm sure some of the gluing and stuff like that in MDF causes irregularities, because I did have where I had a really clean cut, then I had a not so clean cut, and then another really clean cut, even though the power settings had went down. So I'm going to credit that to the glue and the way that MDF is constructed. So, but all in all though, guys, at the end of the day, this is, just so that we're clear, okay? This is one pass, and you can see it right there. I've got it, it's been marked it. This is 2 passes with the 20 watt X-Tool D1. And you can see I actually had some pretty good cuts with just 1 pass. So I don't think 2 passes is necessarily recommended. 1 would be sufficient, but it was a little, the only one that I really had a good clean out on was the 100% output at 3 millimeters per second on 1 pass. It cut through the MDF relatively easy. It was a nice clean cut. Didn't have any snags or anything like that. And I am running air assist. And I beg of you, if you're going to try this at 3 millimeters per second with an X-Tool 20 watt, please run air assist, because this stuff does scorch really well. I found that out in the Monport. It will burn like pretty easy. So make sure to run air assist. But I'm going to show you this, guys, and apparently tonight's winner is going to be the Otour LM3 rocking the Comgrow 20 watt module. And the last 2 rows up top were the only place I had any problems with snags. All right, the Comgrow module, I don't know if it's the length of focus or what, because even on the X-Tool, I even tried cheating the focus down, and I didn't get the same results as I did with the Monport, with the Comgrow. Now, that's why you see I ran 3 tests here, because I was like, there has to be an issue, because they're both 20 watt modules, and they're really similar. I'm running shop air on the X-Tool, which I did adjust on my second test just to make sure I wasn't running too much air, and I'm running the Diwali air assist on the Comgrow. But this is the Otour versus the Comgrow module on the Otour machine versus the D1 right there. And guys, as you can see, I got like a whole nother row of cuts doing 2 passes with the Comgrow module and Otour team up. Now, on the 1 pass, I didn't have quite as many, but now I didn't bump these nearly as hard. I'm going to show you. These are the 1 passes. Okay, all I did for these was I just took the tip of my knife and just kind of tapped them like so to see which ones would fall out. I didn't press these really hard. If I press them, you can see that a lot more of them will come out. Now they're leaving little snags. That one, I think that would probably be the point to where nothing else is going to come out. So technically, if if you press, and this is the one for the X-Tool, and you can see right here, that one was kind of nasty the way it came out. All right, when I press these aren't wanting to come out. My knife point's actually going into the material and just making a little hole. So even on the single pass stuff, it seems that the Comgrow module actually cut better than my X-Tool D1. Now, in their defense, if I were cutting this material with a 20-watt machine, and I've got another 20-watt that's supposed to be coming for testing, I would not go. It appears that about, I'm going to say about 93% power, I run 100. If you're at 93, why not run 100? But at 100% power, I would say either 3, 4, or 5 millimeters per second would work. 3 is going to be a little slow, but will definitely get you through. 4 is kind of the trade-off. So 4 millimeters a second at 100% power with either the X-Tool D1 or the Comgrow will definitely get you there. Now, the Comgrow is a little more forgiving. It was actually giving me clean cuts all the way up to 6 millimeters per second in a single in 2 passes. So that's a little better. But both machines will effectively cut this stuff until I would say you get up around 90% power. From 90% power to 100% power at 3 millimeters per second, both machines are giving me nice clean cuts. So being that both of these machines are 20-watt modules, I would go with, safe to say that that's probably going to be my speed that I will be writing down in my documentation, so that if I'm cutting MDF, I'm going to run 1 pass at 100% power at 3 millimeters per second. Didn't have a whole lot of problems with charring. I mean, it is a little black, but it gives me a nice clean cut. If you do want to run the 2 passes, then if you run 2 passes, you can actually move, I would say with either machine, you could move up to 4 millimeters per second with the 2 passes and still get a nice clean drop without a whole lot of little fuzzies and little fibers hanging on. But the one pass actually seems to do a little better on the MDF. I don't know if that's because it's generating more heat and it's just getting through there better or what. Traditionally with other woods, I won't run 1 pass, but with this stuff, I think that's where I'm going to land is 100% output, 3 millimeters per second, 1 single pass. And I think that will be my new setting for MDF. So all you guys that have been saying you can't cut MDF with a 10 watt, that you're having problems cutting 1/4 inch MDF with a 10 watt, I agree with you. Okay, if you're trying to use a 10 watt on 1/4 inch MDF, then you're going to have issues. 1/8 of an inch would probably be more in what you would need to be looking at for a 10 watt. But with the 20s, 1/4 inch MDF, not a problem. You are going to have to run a really slow speed at 3 millimeters per second. So that's something you're going to want to take into consideration. All right, guys, for the next test that I did to battle it out between my 2 20-watt machines, I went ahead and I did a small image file. Now, I used the exact same image file with the exact same settings for both machines. I didn't resize the image or anything. I just simply copied it from one machine, pasted it to the other. And here's the results of the 2 machines. Now, this has not been touched with sandpaper. I haven't done anything to it. You've got the Comgrow or Tour team, and you've got the X-Tool, okay? Nothing has been done to either image, so that's going to be straight off of the machine. So I'm going to go back over here because I'm a firm believer in sometimes these things don't look exactly the way they should until you hit them with a little sandpaper. So I've got me a little small, and I'm afraid to do this with a sander because I'm not accustomed to MDF, and I don't know how easy this stuff is to sand. So I'm going to start with the little X-Tool one here, and I'm just going to kind of more or less brush it with this 400 grit, and this is P400 grit sandpaper. I know this isn't made for hand sanding, guys. I usually use my orbital, but because I don't want to take too much material off, I want to do it by hand. And so I'm just going to wipe it a few times here, just basically to sand off any soot that may just kind of be hanging out on the surface of it. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the Tour. And there is before sanding. And like I said, this is very, very light, and this is a very high grit sandpaper because I do not want to damage my image with the sandpaper. So let me grab an air hose so that I can come over here and blow the dust off of those guys. So what I wanted to know, I see a lot of guys using MDF, and I see some pretty cool projects with it. I have never used MDF myself, and so while out shopping for materials the other day, I picked up a 2x4 sheet of it just to, you know, give it a try and see how it does. So, not gonna lie, guys, I'm pretty impressed with the results here. And now the tables have turned. Okay, so I'm going to show you, in my opinion, and I'll let you guys be the judge of it. In my opinion, the number 2 image that I was able to make is going to go to the Comgrow. There's the image. This is an old black and white image. I just snagged it off of like National Archives or somewhere. It's just it's like a museum piece or something. All right, there's the Comgrow and Autour. All right, and this is going to be the X tool. All right, exact same settings. No LPI change, no nothing. Okay, a little more detail in this one. So when it comes to that, I'm going to have to, and both of these, like I said, both these machines are 20 watts. And in my opinion, there's a little more detail, I think. Like the Comgrow maybe is a little more pixelated. Now, either one of these things looks great, in my opinion, considering it's on wood. But I do think I got a little more detail, and I don't have quite as many dots in the X tool side of things. So that's my MDF testing, guys. The speed that I ran at these, because I know somebody's going to ask, I run 115 millimeters per second at 100% output on both machines. Now, I could run the LPI up and try this again and see who gives the better results. And that may be, you know, a video for another day. But today I just wanted to kind of get some baseline settings so I can start playing with this stuff. And I use some of the settings that I've used on, you know, other woods. And I think I got pretty good results, good contrast, and really both machines did exceptional. But I do think the X tool may have kind of squeezed out the competition when it comes to the 20 watt class. Now, some of the 10s that I've got, I'm sure could probably do even a little bit better with this MDF, because it appears MDF does retain detail a little better than plywood, because normally the difference between the two machines is very hard to detect. It's a little easier on this MDF. So something to consider if you're wanting to do like portraits or photos on wood. Maybe you need to start looking at some MDF for that. So until next time, guys, as always, be safe and have a good day.